As I'm sure no one is surprised, now that it's January and Christmas has been and gone, I have a big stack of books that have recently come into my house. Hi, it's Jade, and today I'm going to be doing a book haul. So this is going to be books that I was given as gifts for Christmas, books that I bought with my Christmas money, books that I've been, thrifting over the past couple of months, books from my book subscription box, which we will get to later, and also I thought I would show you the bookish type gifts that I was given for Christmas that aren't necessarily books themselves. I haven't counted these, but I believe there's over 30 books here, so we'll just dive straight in. I'm going to start with the books that I was given by my family members as Christmas presents. Well, not necessarily just by family members, because one of these was like a Secret Santa from work. The first book I was given by my brother. This was on my Goodreads to be bought list, and everyone in my family was like, that is the perfect book for you. And it is 52 Times Britain Was a Bellend by James Felton. I know that there is a second one of these, which is 52 More Times Britain Was a Bellend. But for those of you maybe in America, because I have an American friend who messaged me to ask me what a bellend was when I posted about this. A bellend is a dickhead. Basically, it's our version of dickhead. And this is a history book about sort of just the times that Britain was just awful throughout history, which is why there is a second one, because it was way more than 52 times. Next, two books by my sister. She got me A Nasty Boys by Neil Gaiman. I have no idea what this is about, but she knows I like Neil Gaiman, so, I do. I love Neil Gaiman, so I'm assuming that I will like this as well. Let's have a quick read of the blurb, shall we? Okay, so this one actually seems to kind of tie in with the other book that she bought me, in that this seems to be a demigod story about a kid whose father is the trickster god Anansi. So yeah, cool, exciting. The second book that she got me, which is just a fluke that she didn't know that I'd read the first one of these. She also didn't know this was the second in a series, so it all worked out. And that is The Testament of Loki by Joanne M. Harris. I read the Gospel of Loki a couple of years ago. She just knows that I'm obsessed with the Norse gods, so she was like, here, have this. And I enjoyed the Gospel of Loki. It was sort of just a retelling of various Norse myths leading up to Ragnarok, but from the perspective of Loki. So I'm interested in how you continue that story. And the last book I was given as a gift, we did Secret Santa at my work, and clearly the impression that the people that I work with have of me is that she likes to read and she likes cats. And both of those things are in fact true. So my Secret Santa got me What Cats Want by Dr. Yuki Hattori. I have actually had a brief flick through this, and as far as coffee table books go that people who don't know you all that well give you, this seems really interesting. It's not just a surface level book from what I can see. Dr. Yuki Hattori is actually very well versed in cat psychology and cat behaviour and everything. It's got these adorable little illustrations in it, but a lot of this I know just from having cats for years, but it's very interesting to read about, so I'm actually very interested to read that one. I think we'll stick with the books now, so I'm going to go with things that I have picked up from secondhand bookshops. Between Christmas and New Year's, I went to a National Trust house because I have National Trust membership, so it's free entry. And other than just the amazing historical conservation that goes on there, one of the great things about the National Trust is that basically every one of their houses in the UK has a secondhand bookstore now. And I picked up two books that I've wanted for ages there. I got this lovely hardback version of Piranesi. I was going to say Piranesi. I don't know how you pronounce this word. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I've never read anything from Susanna Clarke, but I've heard very good things about this book, and I tried getting it on audiobook, but it's never been available. So I'm taking that as a good thing. But this is blurbed, it's got reviews by both Madeline Miller and Erin Morgenson. So Erin Morgenson is my favourite author. Madeline Miller wrote The Song of Achilles, which was in my top 10 favourite books 2021. So I'm hyped for that one. And the other one I got was The Remains of the Day by hang on a second. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. Did I say that? I've watched the movie of this, and really enjoyed it. This is a classic, I believe. And I'm now just taking the classic reading challenges prompt of a classic is something written before 1971. Oh wow! Okay, this is not an old book at all. This was written in 1989. Wow. I have a thing where, and my mum finds this hilarious, if a piece of media is set in a certain time period, my brain instantly assumes it was made in that time period, which makes it really fun when she's showing me like a period drama or something like that, which is something I absolutely love. Because my brain just goes, well, that was made in the 1910s, despite the fact that it's in, HD. And it's really difficult for my brain to differentiate between the time period that I'm watching and the time period it was actually made in. So, I mean, that's just there was no real point in me bringing that up other than the fact that that is just something that my brain has issues with. Okay, next I picked up The Upstairs Room by Kate Murray Brown. This one has been on my TBR for ages, ever since I started getting into thrillers. So I say ages, last year. This, I believe, is like a domestic thriller, but it might have like a supernatural aspect to it, I'm not entirely sure, but basically a family move into a house and the wife is convinced that the house is like haunted, it's making her ill. The husband is of the opposite opinion, he loves the house, they've saved up for it for ages, and they have a lodger in the upstairs room who I think he might then end up having an affair with or something like that. But it's also possible that maybe this lodger is poisoning the wife or something, so I'm not sure. It was an intriguing, plot. The rest of these secondhand ones are all ones that I picked up in one of my favourite secondhand bookshops near where I live, which is the Red Cross bookshop, because they have such a wide range of things. And unfortunately I bent this one. But this is also a weird version of a weird copy of this. Also, just noticed that I still have basically all of the price tags on these, so I'll fix that. Probably not during this video because that will not be fun to watch. But anyway, I picked up Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. This was in part of there is a stack of classical books that I want to read, and every time I stumble upon one in a second-hand bookshop, I pick it up. And I really liked this version, this weirdly large version of this. This is one of those classics that I've heard about and I sort of know about by reputation as opposed to much of the story. The only thing I actually know about the story is what you see in The King and I, where they put on the play version of Uncle Tom's Cabin. I believe it's set during slavery, and I'm not sure if Uncle Tom is a slave or a freed slave, but either way, this is one of those things that's on my 1001 books to read before I die thing that are mostly classics. This is another book that I know mostly by reputation. I think it was everywhere about 5 to 10 years ago. Maybe because there was a movie version of it, possibly? Apologies, I realise I'm talking and pulling the price tags off at the same time. Sorry. But I've started now, so I have to take all of the sticker off of this one. And that is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. So, again, I know basically nothing about this. I feel like a lot of the books on this stack have that. It was just I know that book, and I've wanted to read that book. So it was a decent copy of it, and annoyingly, it's one of those softbacks that has no blurb. whatsoever. So that's not exactly going to help me. I'm assuming it's a story of a geisha. I picked this one up because I didn't know whether it was the first or not, but I know I wanted to start this series, so even if it wasn't, it then just will inspire me to buy the first in the series. I have now found out that it is not. But it is one of those annoying... It's part of that annoying trend of young adult series where they now refuse to put numbers on the spine. Please can we go back to that? Because that was nice and helpful. But this is The Hollow Boy, which is one of the Lockwood & Co books. This has been recommended by Leanne multiple times in multiple videos of hers. I have now found out that the first one is the Screaming Staircase, so I'm not going to read this one yet. But this is like a young adult paranormal series where ghosts have become sort of like an everyday part of life, but the only people who can see them are children. So they have sort of en masse been conscripted into various paranormal companies that go and hunt ghosts. Lockwood & Co is the only one of those like paranormal fighting groups that is actually run by children, and so it follows the story of them and their like various adventures, I believe. The next one I picked up is a very odd copy of this book actually, and that is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This, as it says on the back, this is one of 40,000 copies printed of this version of this book for World Book Night 2011. And because I've wanted to read The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime for a while, but this copy just kind of, I was like, this is so weird. It's like the book and then the book. But anyway, this is a murder mystery with a main character who has Asperger's syndrome, and he has never gone, I think, past the end of his street, and one day he finds a neighbour's dog dead, and he decides to investigate and try and figure out why this dog is dead, because he believes it's been murdered. And that is the extent of what I know of this book. But do you agree with me? This is like, it's a nice copy, but it's just a bizarre copy. When I first picked it up, I was almost like, is this actually going to be the book, or is this going to be like people talking about the book? But no, it is the actual story. So I just checked to see if the camera was still filming, and so many bones in my body clicked. I'm so old. Right, this is a lovely, like, unread copy of The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of the Window and Disappeared by Jonas Johnson, or Jonathan. This is a book that my sister would not stop going on about when it first came out, and I've never read it. But I know it was huge at one point. It was like on every time you went into a bookshop, it was in the like, what's hot right now kind of section. But it's a story of a man who is turning 100 and doesn't want to, so he escapes his like old people's home that he's in and goes on an adventure. And that's sort of what I know of that. But I think it would be really exciting to read a book about a protagonist who is that old, because most books that I read have protagonists that are like in their 30s at the latest, so. Okay, this is another book that was on my list of like 1001 books I want to read, and that is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. And this, I believe, is more like a character study than a very plot-driven book, and I think focuses mostly around one family and their relationships with each other. That's sort of all I know about that. But this is a really nice copy of this book. This, if you watched my 2022 readathons video, you will already know that I have, and that is, taking the sticker off, that is 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northrup. This is a memoir, non-fiction story about a man who is forced into slavery. While slavery is still like a thing in the US, but he was a free man anyway, and then he gets tricked by these con men and like gets really drunk and I think is drugged, maybe. But anyway, and then when he wakes up, he is being sold as a slave, and it's his story of trying to survive that and also get back to his family. So I will be reading this one this year because it is on my Back to the Classics challenge. This is another classic. This is one of the lovely modern classic covers, and that is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rice. Seriously, I mean, at least I butcher everyone's name on this channel. It's like just a wide thing of I cannot read anyone's name. So no one gets out of this well. I don't know if this is set in England or not, but it is a story about, what's her name? Antoinette Cosway and her husband and their like tumultuous marriage, and how that I think sends her mad. So like, you know, typical very cheerful fare is like, a lot of the classics seem to be like shockingly bleak when you actually look into them. The last second-hand book that I picked up is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. This is a fantasy, like a urban fantasy, I think, about a second London underneath London. And the second London is still kind of like medieval, I think. Like there are knights and things like that, but there's also monsters as well. So it's like a you know, typical fantasy setting, but underneath London. I'm saying that like it's not going to be interesting. It's Neil Gaiman, and he's almost always interesting. I just noticed there's like a weird. I don't know if my cat's got to this because there are bite marks at the bottom of this book. Ooh! The entire stack just collapsed. Okay, so this stack I was given a Waterstones, £50 Waterstones voucher by my mum for Christmas, and like the day after Boxing Day, Waterstones had a 75% off of all of their hardback sale, so I went a bit insane and I bought quite a lot. They're not all hardbacks, but they are ones that were like on my TBR. So the first one I got was These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in Shanghai in 1926. And so it's like a Chinese mob retelling of Romeo and Juliet, which just sounds so good. Because, I mean, Romeo and Juliet is probably one of my least favourite Shakespeare plays, but I do think the concept of, you know, forbidden love between warring factions is like, has so much potential, so I'm really looking forward to that. Next, I mean, if you watched sort of quite a few of my videos from last year, I would not stop talking about The House in the Cerulean Sea and how lovely it was and how warm it made me. So when I found out that TJ Klune had come out with another, which is Under the Whispering Door, I was like, I need this instantly. I mean, I'm kind of sad that I got in hardback and The House in the Cerulean Sea is in paperback because they won't match. But, I mean, like, just, oh, it's so pretty, and I'm so excited, and I know nothing about this, other than the fact that it was written by TJ Klune. And that, seriously, that was enough for me to be like, I need this. I need this in my life, right now. So, let's find out what it's about together, shall we? Oh my god, this sounds so cute. And, just, okay, so this is a story about someone called Wallace who dies, so that doesn't, you know, necessarily correlate with what I just said earlier. And when death comes to collect him, he doesn't necessarily believe her to begin with. But then he, you know, accepts that, and he gets taken to a tea shop run by a man called Hugo, and as he, like, hangs around with Hugo and talks to the customers and everything, he starts to realise that maybe he wasn't living his life to the fullest, and that maybe this little, like, halfway between place is where he can start living, and it just, doesn't that just sound so adorable? That was a good purchase. I haven't even read it yet, but I know that was a good purchase. Okay, so another author that I just wouldn't shut up about last year is Becky Chambers, and I got the last one in the Wayfarers series, which is The Galaxy and Ground Within. Once again, this kind of proves how much, like, how in love with this series and just Becky Chambers I am, because I was not willing to wait for this to come out in paperback so that it would, you know, match the other ones in this series. So I was like, I need to read it, and I need to read it now. So I'm going to buy it in hardback. Also because it was 70% off, so I was like, there's no reason for me to not pick it up. So this is the last in the series, so I won't talk about what happens in this one. But the Wayfarers series is a comfy sci-fi series, because that's what Becky Chambers does. She does soft, comfy sci-fi. And each book is technically its own complete story with just some overlap of like characters. So the Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is the first book in the series, follows the crew of the Wayfarer, who are a long-haul tunnelling ship, and they like punch wormholes through space to allow people to travel faster. And it is like just found family and lovely, and such good like representation and such good sci-fi species that aren't all humanoid and that don't all just like, there's a lot of good conversations in there about not judging another species like way of life based on your own internal, like the way that humans run. You shouldn't think that just because you're a human being that means that the way humans do things is the absolute moral epitome of the way things should be done, and that just because other species do it differently that they're like wrong somehow. It was probably the first sci-fi that I've read that actually properly looked at that and didn't come away with the way humans do it is the right way, everyone else is just wrong. So that was very interesting. I also bought Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and just like, can I just like gush over this cover because like, oh my god. I read 3 Greek retellings last year, and I'm going to continue because that is alongside the like magical doors, I feel like that is a niche that I can just very comfortably live in. So Ariadne is the story of Ariadne, who is the daughter of King Minos, who was the king of Crete. He was the one that imprisoned the Minotaur in the labyrinth and such and such. So this is her story. I mean, Ariadne is very fleetingly mentioned. Ariadne is only very fleetingly spoke of in the myth of the Minotaur as sort of like the prize that Theseus gets for slaying the Minotaur. So I'm hoping that this is going to give her more character and maybe make their romance like more of a thing and less of a just, oh wow, you killed my son that I just imprisoned in a labyrinth, have my daughter as, you know, a prize. So I also bought The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper, and this is another like just beautiful cover. And I said before, I think in my mid-year freak out tag, I want young adult to continue this trend of just gorgeous graphic covers instead of like that thing we had where it was just photos of people that I'm just not into. I mean, that personal preference, but I prefer this type of thing. So this is, I don't think it's like a hard sci-fi, but it's, I don't even know if you can call it sci-fi. It's just that the main characters, both of their parents work for NASA, and so they spend a lot of time with their respective parents like off planet. So not even just away for work. They're not on the planet. So it's the story of Cal and Leon, and them meeting, and like through this common ground, their like relationship, and yes, it is a queer love story. So excited. Is it bad that this one went onto my TBR because of the cover? I mean, I feel like everyone judges the book by the cover, but this was just like such an indication that I am very, very gay, because it's The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. I have a type, alright? And she is it. So we'll just move past that. What makes this even better is I'm like fairly certain that this is sapphic anyway. So like, okay. So this is a fantasy that follows. I'm gonna try and pronounce her name. Toraine. Even when it's a fantasy name, I can't pronounce it. But this, I believe, is Toraine. She is a soldier, and she gets like hired by Luca, who is like the deposed queen of, I don't know if it says the country. No, it doesn't. She is a deposed queen, and she hires this person whose name I can't pronounce to help her win it back. And so I'm expecting like high fantasy fighting and like just so like I may have started this as a just I like this cover, but then I read the synopsis and was like, you know what, I'm in for this completely. Okay, this is a book that I saw on TikTok, and it was being promoted by the woman who wrote it, and the way I'm just going to describe it the way she described it. But anyway, that is Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao, and once again, oh my god, the cover, like, yeah, she said, Pacific Rim, but in Imperial China. So I just went, yes please. and bought it. Another one, this has been on my TBR for a while because I thought it just looked so interesting, and that is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I mean, you know what this is, like, mimicking. It's mimicking an IKEA catalogue or an IKEA instruction manual. And it is a horror story set in IKEA. I mean, I don't think it's actually called IKEA, it's just it's a version of IKEA. But it's written, it's almost multimedia in that it's written like you've got an order form and stuff here, and like, it's just such a good concept that all I knew was that, I mean, it was kind of, I don't know if it was like a creepypasta or something at one point, but like one of those, I think it was a creepypasta. It was one of those things, it was like, the people that work in IKEA are people that never managed to get out of the maze that was IKEA, and I think someone took that concept and just ran with it. So I'm just really excited because it's such a good idea, and I just hope that they stick the landing. So we will see with that one. No, I was rewatching my mid-year freakout tag, and I saw that I'd put this on my most anticipated releases of like the end of last year. And I'd forgotten that I'd said that when I bought this, but, you know, I think extra proof that I actually do want this, and that's Wendy oh my god. Let's try that again. And that is Wendy Darling by A.C. Weiss. This is a Peter Pan retelling, as far as I know. Okay, so this is not a retelling, it's a follow-on from Peter Pan, when Wendy, when my cat's just walked in, when Wendy is grown, she has children of her own, and she has to follow Peter back to Neverland as a grown woman. And yeah, I'm the two like fairy tale children's stories that I'm always up for reading retellings or books set in the world of are Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, yes please. Do you want to say hello? Do you want to say hello? You want to say hello to the lovely people? Yes? It's always really hard to film this cat because I swear he, like, doesn't focus in cameras. Because you're just a big black shadow, aren't you? And he's so unimpressed with what I'm doing right now. I also bought Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. This is such a cool cover. This is not the cover that I saw on Goodreads, because I think the one I saw on Goodreads was probably like the American cover, but this is so cool. This looks like the cheap 1980s Pulp Fiction books, and I think that's what it was going for. But you can probably tell that this is a retelling, or like, in the same way that One of Us is Lying was a takeoff of The Breakfast Club, but with murder, the Meddling Kids is going to be Scooby-Doo. but I imagine a little bit darker. It's pretty much Scooby-Doo, but if they were all grown up. So they had like a murder club when they were teenagers. Now they've all kind of gone their own separate ways. But then I think someone dies and they have to get back together again and figure out what happened. Can you stop knocking my camera, please? But yeah, like that. The last one I got from Waterstones was They Called Us Enemy by George Takei, aka Sulu from Star Wars. Hello. He's just circling me, if you were wondering. This is a graphic novel about, I believe it's actually about his own history of like growing up in an American concentration camp. So I think it's semi-autobiographical or completely autobiographical. I'm not entirely sure. Yes, no, it is. His first canned account of the years behind barbed wire, the joys and terrors of growing up under legalised racism, his mother's hard choices, his father's faith in democracy, and the way those experiences planted the seeds of his astonishing future. So I was like, this is going to be hard-hitting, but also, like, a very important read. Hello. I know, I'm sorry, am I not paying enough attention? I just threw that book. Am I not paying enough attention to you? We're nearly done. But this is wobbling, it's because Pippin is, like, wandering through the tripod and, like, rubbing himself against it. So the final 5 books are from my Box of Stories subscription. I got 5 this month because it's my 3rd box in a row, and they were like, as a reward, we're going to just give you an extra book. So all I did was take these out of the box. I know nothing about them because, I don't know, do I need to give this, like, description every time? But a Box of Stories is a subscription service that will send you 4 books every 3 months, however much you want. I've done it for quarterly, so they send me a box of books every 3 months, and their main goal is to prevent books from being thrown into... I'm sorry, I got really distracted. I thought he was going to throw it, but he's just cleaning himself. Their main goal is to prevent books from being thrown into the landfill. So you get a selected collection of books. So far, all the books I've gotten I've never heard about before, so I find that interesting, but you can pick like the fiction box, the non-fiction box, the thriller box. I picked the general fiction box, so get like a mixture of things. The first one in the box was Fled by Meg Kimiali. One of the things I know about this, because Box of Stories is a British thing, all of the books that I've read so far have been, I think, by British authors and set in England. That's a complete lie. There was one set in Las Vegas. Ignore what I just said. But anyway, I believe they are all written by English authors at least. Okay. This is a story about a thief called Jenny Trelawney, who is sent to Australia when Australia was a prison colony of England. So that sounds very interesting. Oh wow, okay. Based on the extraordinary true story of convict Mary Bryant. Ooh, okay. And it also says highway robber, convict, runaway mother. So is she a highway woman? That's so interesting. Okay, next we have, this is a lovely cover. We have Dual Citizens by Alex Offlin. Let's find out what this is about. Right, this seems to be a story about 2 sisters, one of whom, who's called Lark, has always felt overshadowed by her sister Robin, and also by her mother, her boss, everyone. She's like one of those people that feels like she's just... everyone else gets the limelight, she's always at the back. And just as I think it seems like her life is kind of falling apart, she has to... What was that, Pippin? What did you just do? Excuse me, sir. What have you done? That was a very suspicious noise. Trials and tribulations of owning a pet. Okay, the next one, I'm kind of just judging from the cover that this is going to be a romance. I might be completely wrong. But this is Summer Days and Sea Breezes by Carol Matthews. Either that or it's just kind of like a seaside-y beach book. I don't know. Let's have a look. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, this seems like a romance. This seemed like, I'll still give it a go, but this definitely seems like one of those books that I would never pick up myself. This follows the story of Jodie, who goes to the Isle of Wight to stay on her brother's houseboat after leaving her husband. And then it seems like she meets a man who has like a houseboat next to hers called Ned, and it's like their relationship. So I'm not as excited about this as I was about the other two in the box, but like I'll give it a go. But like romances like this are not necessarily my thing. Although, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what it's like. Ooh, okay, this is a thriller. I mean, if you couldn't tell from the cover. Eyes Like Mine by Sheena Camel. I said that with like so much sass. I'm just a bit tired of thrillers having this kind of cover constantly. I mean, yes, you can instantly look and go, right, well I know what genre that is, but it's like... So, this, I'm just going to read you the blurb because it sounds quite interesting. It just says, "It's late, the phone rings. The man on the other end says his daughter is missing. Your daughter, the baby you gave away over 15 years ago. What do you do?" So, I guess that's what Eyes Like Mine is. So it looks like this is a story of a woman who gave her daughter up for adoption, and then that daughter goes missing, and she's, like, from that it sounds like she's gonna try and find her daughter, even though, like, technically not her daughter anymore. But this is also just completely thrown out the thing about these books are all set in England, because this is set in Vancouver. So ignore what I said earlier. This one, because it also has luminous text and says the thriller of the year, so it's a thriller, is the last one on the book part of this haul, and that is The Dangerous Kind by Deborah O'Connor. What if the people we trust are the ones we should fear? Ooh, okay. 1 in 100 of us is what the police call a potentially dangerous person, someone likely to commit a violent crime. These people hide in plain sight. They can be teachers, doctors, holding positions of trust or power. Jessamine Gooch makes a living tracking the 1 in 100. Each week she broadcasts a radio show that examines brutal offences, asking if more could have been done to identify and prevent their perpetrators. Okay, that sounds like a precursor to the Minority Report. Okay, so it seems like, yeah, this lady is a radio host, and she agrees to investigate a missing person and then, like, gets pulled into that world. So, I mean, kind of typical thriller fare, but interesting. I just want to see what this is like under the cover, because it's a white book. Oh, very boring. I mean, that's a very pretty colour, but we'll just put the dust jacket back on. Those are all the books, technically, I was given. We'll now go to the Bookish Gifts that I was given. One of these is something I bought for myself, but it is also bookish, so I'm gonna... This is something that my sister got me, and I don't know how well it will show up on camera, but it is a wooden bookmark with this lovely little, like, bead on it, and it's got some very nice, like, Chinese characters and a little vase, or half of a vase on it. This is so lovely, and, I mean, this is not what this is for, but this is something that I really like, is that the sound of the china bead on the wood is so satisfying. I'm so easily pleased. But it's a lovely bookmark, and I've been using it on everything that I've read since Christmas. So, lovely. And I also got this from one of my best friends. It is a necklace, and if anyone here has read The Starless Sea, you will know why I was so excited when I got this. This is the key and the bee from The Starless Sea. The only thing missing is the sword, but it's so lovely. And I love, like, bronze type looking jewellery, so I've worn this so often since I got given it. When I opened it, she was like, "Oh, I hope you know what it's in reference to." As soon as I picked it, I was like, how could you even think that I wouldn't know what that was in reference to? This is something I bought myself, but it's something I wanted to start doing like every year. I bought myself a reading journal. If you follow me on Instagram, I have posted about this. But it's got pages for, it's got like little bookshelves for your TBR, a list of the books that you've read and when you read them, and then specific pages where you can write the book that you're reading, give it a star rating, and some just like general thoughts on what you've read. So I've already filled like a couple of pages out of it, but yes, I wanted to start doing this, especially because I now make these videos. It gives me somewhere to like put my thoughts down so I don't forget what, because of just the sheer number of books that I read. I'm losing my voice. I've talked for quite a while. The last thing to show you, I'm now stroking because I'm trying to put the sticker back on it. I'm going to have to move the camera, I think, to show you, so. This is the last bookish gift I was given, which is this lovely book cart. I bought the To Be Read sticker off of Etsy, so it's currently got all of the like classics and stuff I picked for my Back to the Classics, a few books that I know will fit the Pop Sugar challenge as well. Got my got my shelf for the books that I have read this month. I have read more than one book, but I have lent them out to multiple people, and then that bottom shelf was just for the things that I for the entire stack of hauled books that I had at one point. So those were all of the books and the bookish things that I got for Christmas, and you know, also bought for myself. Have you read any of the things that are in my now incredibly growing TBR? What did you think of them? Did any of these look interesting that maybe you've never heard of before? So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, maybe subscribe if you want to see more from me, and, you know, share to other people, but no pressure. Follow me on Instagram. I post about the books that I'm reading as and when I'm reading them, so you don't have to necessarily wait for my monthly wrap-up videos to find out what I thought about certain things. I do have a Twitter now, but I still have no idea what it's used for, so it's not like, but I mean, feel free to follow me on that. I don't know, maybe I'll figure it out and stop being such a grandma at some point. And as always, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!